Okay.
Brother Tim Will.
All right, I'm here. I've been nervous all day. A lot of people say, oh, it should be easy. You're used to talking on the radio, but you don't get to see their faces or the facial expressions. So anyway, never done this before, so this is a rare moment. We're videoing it. There's going to be documentation that I really did it, but I don't really know what to do, so what I'm going to do is just tell you a story about my life. I'm going to start way back when I was born and just go on through it from there. So first of all, I do want to say thank you for having me. The ladies that prepared the food, it was good. The fellowship here, a lot of people have come a long way to hear me speak, so thank you. I'm very humbly honored that you're here. And Jack and Karen, I've known them for a long time, and they've been a real rock. And when you think of the town of Lincoln, you think of the rock of Jack and Karen Fitzgerald. They really are there, and they've been good to me. So I thank you for your witness, and thank you for being there. So here we go. Here we go. First of all, can I walk a little bit, Bill? Or okay. I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, back in March of 1958, so that makes me almost 52 years old. My birth name was not Jim Weller, it was Jerry Rhetoric was my birth name. My father was Jewish and my mother was Catholic, so hence some of the business experience came in. Anyway, as a Gentile though, we don't Jew people down, we Gentile them down when we're making a deal. So anyway, I moved to Milford, Delaware in 1960 at the age of 2 with my adopted family, Jim and Margaret Weller. They adopted me. And they always let me know I was adopted, and it made me feel really good that they went out of their way. They knew what they were doing. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't something that didn't happen on purpose. They on purpose adopted me. So anyway, moved to Milford, Delaware. Then, from the 1960 to 1969, I didn't do nothing but grow. And in 1969, at about 9 years old, or whenever that is, somewhere in there, I went to work for Maypop. I don't know if everybody knows Maypop. Some might say, yes, I know Maypop. Some might say, yes, I know Maypop. But anyway, Maypop was good to me. He taught me how to work. I was just a young man, worked there for 50 cents a day. But the penalty for not working is he would beat you. Sometimes with his fist, sometimes with a tire iron, and I never got beat, and Gilbert never got beat. So in other words, we always stayed one step ahead of him, and we'd throw the other boys in the way. So anyway, Maypop taught me to work. When Jack talks about me coming down there, I lived in Milford. Some of you know where John Harris's place used to be. I lived 6 houses down from that. I would walk to Lincoln 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would work. Maypop would sleep there. He lived in a trailer there, and I would have to unload like a truckload of tires, 800, 900 tires, unload them, go knock on the door. He said, I'm not ready to get up. Load them back up. And then load the truck back up, knock on the door, I'm not ready to get up, unload them. His attitude was, if he was paying you, you best be working. And I learned it real good, loud and clear from him. If you're getting paid, be working. Not necessarily productive, but be working. But anyway, so I worked for Maypop for 50 cents a day, and then still went to school, and I had an experience in school. I used to buy candy where John Harris's place is. It used to be called the Milford Wholesale Grocery. And I used to buy candy there, like boxes of Now and Laters. Then I would open the packs and sell the Now and Laters in school by the piece to all my friends in school. So that's where it all started. I got in trouble in school, taking and buying and selling candy and so on and so forth. But if you remember back when the school stores used to be in the school and they sold pencils, I'm the one who gave them the idea to start a school store. So anyway, then I started working at Fitzgerald's with Jack, and it used to be when, well, they still do now, when you crush a car, there was 4 tires on it and a spare, and I used to dismount the tires off of the wheels, so you could sell the tires as tires and the wheels as junk metal. And so I worked there for a few years, dismounting junk tires off of wheels, and Jack was a real witness to me then. He would tell me about this Jesus and about being saved and so on, and I was always somewhat inquisitive, but found that really hard to accept. So anyway, I just listened to him and was cordial and let him explain to me. But it started sinking in after a while. I was listening. So he planted some good seeds then. But then I broke in Fitzgerald's in the middle of the night, and I stole all their radiators, me and 2 other people. So I never went back to work the next day. I went to school the next day. The other 2 people took the radiators to another junkyard and sold them, and they got arrested that day, and I got arrested that night. So I didn't go back to Fitzgerald's after that. But this is an example of grace and forgiveness, and I thank you for forgiving me. I really do. So anyway, I went to a place in Milford called Kenton Sussex Tire the next day. Met a man named John Burris. A lot of you know the Burris family. Well, John Burris, he ran for governor a few years back, was a tire salesman. His family owned this company, and he was the guy that you would come in and he would sell you tires. I said, hey, my name's Jim Weller. I'm a hard worker. I can work as hard as anybody you got here. I got arrested last night for stealing here, but I need a job, and I'm a good hard worker. And he hired me right on the spot. And so I went to work for the Burris family at Kenton Sussex Tire. I would go to school during the day, work there in the afternoons, work there on Saturdays. Then they liked me so much, they gave me a key to the building, and I would go in there at nighttime. They had a recap shop where they would recap truck tires, and I would dismount truck tires all night long, remount the ones, and work there all night long, and then go to school. And during school, I sometimes would pay people to do my schoolwork. So I was not really into school if I could help it. But I was there. So anyway, I worked for Burris's, mounting tires. Then I worked in the truck shop. They used to have these tractor trailers that would haul chickens to the chicken plant, and I would hose the chicken stuff off of the trailers. And the Burris family was good to me. They liked me. I liked them. I was a hard worker, and they liked hard workers. So anyway, while I was there, I learned how to change truck tires. And then when I finally got my driver's license, I used to go out on the road in the middle of the night and change truck tires. Like a tractor trailer would break down, you go fix the tire and so on. And then I'm still going to school during the day. So as you can sense and hear, I liked to work. It was never really about the money. I just liked to work. So anyway, somewhere in there back in 1973, I started dating my wife, Denise. I actually used to ride my bike to Dover to see her from Milford. So it was a real love affair from the very beginning. It was. That's what she tells me anyway. Anyway, so then I finally received a driver's license when I turned 16. So now I can really get around. But anyway, at the tire place, Kenton Sussex Tire, I learned how to dismount these truck tires. So when I worked at Fitzgerald's, I would dismount car tires. Then once I learned how to dismount truck tires, I would get like $1 a piece for dismounting truck tires. I used to go to a junkyard up in Odessa. It was up on the top of the hill. It was a truck junkyard called Healthways. And I could dismount 200 truck tires a day for $1 a piece. So naturally, 16 years old, I'm making $200 a day, you know, and I'm ready to quit school. My mom pleaded with me and said, please don't. I went in. I remember talking to the principal and saying, how much do you make? Why do I want to continue this education? I remember his name was Dan McGinnis. I think it was McGinnis. Anyway, and so my mom said, would you please promise me you're going to graduate from high school? I said, I'm going to promise you I'll get through high school, but I ain't going to put no more time in than I have to. And I was very fortunate. My dad's name was Jim Weller, so I could write my own excuses, and I wasn't out of line there, in other words. So I would write my own excuses and sign them Jim Weller. It was fine. Used to sign my own report cards and everything else. So anyway, and my dad had a plumbing business. I forgot to mention that, I think, but I realized real quick I didn't like plumbing. I actually realized real quick I didn't like working by the hour. I like working by the piece and so on. So anyway, when I was about 16 years old, I bought the tire store in Lincoln from Maypop. He had gotten a little bit of trouble. He sold me the business, and I can remember I couldn't even get a business license. I wasn't old enough because you have to be 18. I was very frustrated. At 16, you could pay taxes, file a tax return, but I can't even get a business license. So my mom got the business license in her name, and I had this tire store in Lincoln, and it was called Maypop Tire Company in the beginning. They may pop, and they may not. Depends on if it's your lucky day or not. So anyway, bought this tire store, so I've had employees since I was 15, 16 years old. So again, nothing came easy, but I could always feel God's hand on my life. Because I'm going to tell you, when my mom died, well, let me just finish. I did graduate high school. I was the only student to not go to graduation. Okay? Didn't pick up the diploma for 2 years. They called up one day, said, well, cleaning out the safe, do you want this thing or not? And I sent Gilbert up to get it. So anyway, I do have a diploma. I do have it. Anyway, when my mother died, I think was the first time I really experienced Well, it was a big loss. In other words, Mary Alice, my sister's here. My mother was very, very loving. She was a very kind, compassionate lady. I didn't click with my dad real good, and she really stood in the gap and really always made me feel loved and special. She was very ill. She died in her early 40s. That was the first time I experienced debt. I remember owing money for her tombstone and owing money for the burial plots. And when she died, I went a little crazy. If you know me, I like a lot of inventory. I bought a lot of burial plots. I bought one for me, Denise. We weren't even married. I bought one for my grandmother, for my mom, for my dad. I even bought one for Mary Alice just in case. But anyway, so that was my first experience with debt. So anyway, had to make payments on burial plots in the tombstone. And of course, it's a nice big tombstone. If you go out there, it says Weller right across the top of it and so on. But anyway, in 1978, Denise and I got married. What were we, 18, 19 years old, somewhere in there. And then my dad dies. And my dad and I, we really didn't click real good. And I remember the day he died. I remember them telling me, they took him to the hospital. And I remember getting right into the ICU unit, and I got right to the door, right there. And I looked at him, and he looked at me. And then he went ahead and had a heart attack and died. I didn't get to talk to him. He didn't get to talk to me. But I felt he really had something on his mind, because after he died, I realized that I inherited my sister, Mary Alice. I inherited my grandmother and $5. And I think the $5 bothered my dad. But he had a girlfriend at that time, and she got the 2 houses, and that's why my grandmother lost her house. And so, I took care of my grandmother, took care of Mary Alice, which I'm glad we did. It turned out real good. And so again, as you just see, nothing was easy. Everything was challenging, but lots of opportunities, and God was there all the time. I just 100% didn't know it. I remember when all this was going on with my mom dying, and I was just really frustrated, and I remember a priest. His name was Monsignor Reese. He married Denise and I, buried my mom, buried my dad, been a lifelong family friend. I remember sitting alongside the road in front of St. John's Catholic Church in Milford, and he said, "I'm going to tell you something. There is already been decided that whatever you're going through, you can handle. There's no question about it, you can handle it. And that God will never allow anything to come your way that is more than you can handle." And man, from that point on, it was like a cakewalk. In other words, problems are problems. But the good thing is you're going to get through it. And the word to remember is through, because there's another side to the word through. So that was a real comforting time for me. That when he shared that with me, from then I was like, oh, okay, everything's just an opportunity. And that's the way I look at things, that everything is an opportunity. So then anyway, my grandmother lived with us for a little while. She got ill. I remember putting her in a nursing home in Felton, Delaware. And I remember Jim Sluter owned it, and he made me a deal, $30 a day. And I remember, I don't know how old I was, 19 years old, I was thinking, how in the world am I going to afford this? But somehow, some way, God always provided a way for me to see an opportunity, to make money, to get the things done. And that's what most of you know I'm good at, is getting things done. You can depend on me. I'll figure out a way. And that is kind of what I think God's used me for. But anyway, so Mary Alice went to Holy Cross, graduated, went to college. She's been a real bright spot in my life. I'm very proud of her. She turned out real good. She could have went crazy living with me. But anyway... And it was something, because I remember that when Denise got pregnant, we had the house trailer, and then we didn't have enough room, and then we had to go ahead and get a house, and just everything along the way. But again, no family to lean on, nobody but God to lean on, and he was leanable. In other words, it was good to lean on him. So then, back in 1980, I opened a tire store in Dover called Econo Tires. So again, everything's just always moving right along, no hesitation, no slowing down, nothing like that. In 1981, my first child was born, Jenny, and she was a real blessing to us. Then, back in about 1980-something, a lot of you know Dennis. Dennis McIlvain worked for me. We went to school together. 1 month after graduation, he broke his neck in a swimming accident. He went to dive in a dirt pit. The dirt gave way, and he dove and broke his neck. Now, Dennis and I were okay friends in school, but his father and I were real good friends, Donald. And for 4 years, Dennis just sat in his bedroom, smoked dope, drank beer, hated God, mad at the world, and so on. And finally, one day, his father and I forced him to come to work for me. And so Dennis came to work for us, and, you know, just kind of a little aggravated. I can remember he would smoke. And he would drop a cigarette on the ground, and he'd take a ruler and take Scotch tape and go back to back and get that cigarette picked back up. But man, if he dropped a pencil, he'd be calling on you to pick it up. But I remember we had to get air conditioning because he didn't sweat. He would pass out. I can remember getting touch-tone phones. There's just so much stuff just on and on that I can remember we did to accommodate Dennis, but not knowing what role Dennis was going to play in my life at another point. So Dennis, you know, again, worked with somewhat of a negative attitude, but, you know, his dad and I made him do it, and he did it. Dennis decides his brother gets radically saved, Donnie. So Dennis had always left God on the back burner, like at some point I'll try him, but for right now, if I try God and he fails me, I'm doomed. So right now, I'm not going to try God. But finally, Dennis goes to church, gets radically saved, transformed his life. God really did a work with Dennis. And one day, and so after that, I don't know if you've ever met somebody who is radically saved, they just won't quit talking about it. So anyway, we're at work, and this guy comes to work, and I said to Dennis, I said, I guess this is one of your new church buddies going to talk to you on my time about church. And he said, well, maybe he's here to buy tires. I said, well, I never thought of that. But when the guy hit the door, his name was Neil Murray, I said, show me in the Bible, show me where it says you must be born again. Show me. I'd never seen it. I wanted to see it. And he showed me. And I said, I want to be saved right now. He said, well, we have church on Wednesday night. We have church on Sunday morning. I said, no. I want to be saved right now. So they didn't know what to do. So we loaded up in Dennis's van, and we went to this church in Milford called Lighthouse Christian Center. That's where Dennis was going, and that's where Neil was going. So anyway, Pastor Andrews just happened to be there 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we go there. Long story short, they prayed with me, prayed on me. I repented. I got saved. I got slain in the Spirit. It was quite an experience for me. Then they said, you need to be baptized. I said, well, I was baptized as a child. He said, no, you really need to be baptized as an adult where you're saying you want to be baptized. And I said, well, I'm going to be baptized right now. He said, well, we have church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I said, no, I want to close the deal right now. I want to be baptized right now. So they went ahead and filled up the bathtub, whatever you want to call it, and I was baptized right that day. Then by the time I got home, our friends had called Denise and said that I have gone crazy. In other words, so to pre-warn her what's going on, so because news traveled quick. But from that point on, I looked at things a lot different because I no longer felt alone. When I didn't have my parents and I didn't have anybody, I didn't have anybody to bounce an idea off. I didn't have anybody to say, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? What do I do in this situation? I've always been alone, but not really alone because God was always there. But then Jesus became more real to me than he ever was before. Now, again, I was at a season in life when I wanted to accept this. Jack had planted seeds a long time ago, and other people had talked to me. Pastor Arillo had spent a lot of time talking to me. So along the way, all these different people had planted seeds. But man, once I got it, I didn't feel alone no more. So now I've already been told I can handle anything that comes along. That's already written and guaranteed. And now I've got Jesus that I can talk to all day long, and he's not going to get sick of hearing my ideas or putting up with me, and he's going to love me in spite of me. So, because a lot of people say, boy, it's been easy for you. Everything you touch just seems to work out. I'm not this good. God is the one who has done it for me and done it through me. And all of you that know me, you know I get some quacky ideas. I decide to buy this. I decide to buy that. But man, you can see God's hand in it every time. I don't know if Jack, if you remember, I went and bought that machine, that wheel crushing machine. I mean, it was like a wood splitter. It had one cylinder. I went all the way to Prentice, Wisconsin to buy this machine. But you take a tire and wheel and you set it in it and you hit a lever and it smashes the wheel and the tire, comes back out and you lift the wheel out and the tire out. And I think I could do like 4 a minute for like 25 cents a piece. So again, another thing there, but it really worked out. So let me keep moving along here. So my second child was also born in 1983. That was my daughter, Kimberly. That was page 1. Now I'm on page 2, okay? This is the other page. Back in 1988, I purchased the Bridgeville property. That's another amazing story. In other words, I bought the building on the highway. I just bought it over the phone from a guy. I said, I'll sell it to you for $65,000, $10,000 down, 10% interest for 10 years. And I said, okay, I'll take it. You know, in other words, so I bought that. Then the land in the back, Mr. Messick said, I don't ever want to sell any land. He ended up selling me 2 acres of land, you know. And then I ended up buying the 16 acres across the street. They wanted a lot of money for it. I was able to buy that. So God just constantly, for me, I'm not saying it's been all him or all me. We've worked well together. Let me put it like that, in other words. So anyway, and then Jimmy was born. My son Jimmy was born in 1988. He was my 3rd child. Anyway, so then 1990, my sister Mary Alice, who is my adopted sister, so we were both adopted by the same parents, decides to find her birth mother. Sets out to find her birth mother and does. And then I guess she and Denise kind of encouraged me, maybe I should find my birth mother. So we get the process rolling and we find my mom. She lives right in Wilmington, Delaware. So I was born in Wilmington. My mom lives in Wilmington. So I was reunited with her in 1990. Now, the mother that adopted me and the mother that I have now, there's no comparison. In other words, there's no I love yous or anything like that. She won't drive from Wilmington to Milford to see me. It's always me putting out the effort. But she is my mom, and I'm doing my best to work with her, and she's doing her best to work with me. But it's just almost like one of them things you almost wish you had never opened up that can of worms, you know? But it is what it is, and I think it put her at peace knowing I'm okay, I don't hate her, and I turned out all right. And I think that was a good thing. So I reunite with my mom, my birth mom, in 1990. Now, I have a father. I do ride-alongs with the state police, and I've looked him up to see what he looks like on his driver's license. And if you can envision me 20 years older, that's what he looks like. a whole lot of face. But I've never looked him up because I have another sister who, after my mom and I met her, and she's mad at me, doesn't want to talk to me, hates me, and I have nothing to do with that. But if she needs a kidney, I'm here for her. But so I do have a sister in Wilmington. So anyway, where was I getting off at? But I don't even remember what I was saying. So now I've reunited with my mom. No big thing there. And now I've got a couple businesses going. I got the store in Bridgeville and I got the store in Lincoln. And then things are moving along. Business is okay. And then Jenny decides to get married. And she's very happy about it. And I just didn't want her to leave home. It kind of broke my heart. Anyway, at the same time, I decided to have a heart attack to avoid a trip to Israel. The radio station had planned a trip to Israel, and I signed up saying, sure, we'll go. This is like a couple years before they go, thinking this trip's never going to take place. Anyway, it gets closer and closer, and anyway, I said to Denise, I said, I'd rather have an operation than go on this trip. I mean, I was figuring out how to get food shipped over there, what's a satellite cell phone. I was signing up having a heart attack. I was rewriting my will, having a trust done. I was having all this life insurance bought, and so I have a heart attack. So in 2000, I get my first 4 stents. So if any of you have them, I'm starting a collection of them. I have 4 in the year of 2000 having a heart attack to avoid going to Israel, which I didn't go. So anyway, but my wife had a good time. All right. Then about the same time, Jenny gets married. I almost have to take a trip to Israel. I have a heart attack. And then my daughter Kim decides to go to college in her senior year of high school. So she decides to move away. So I'm fighting depression. I remember going to a doctor, you know, and saying, man, I can't take all this. And he started making these notes. I said, man, don't make no notes. I'm not depressed any longer. Don't write nothing down. I'll never get health care insurance or life insurance or whatever if you start writing I'm depressed. So anyway, Kim decides to go away to college and does a good job. She goes out to Anderson, Indiana, graduates from Anderson University, swears she's going to move to California, lives in Blades, works for me. So I whittled her down is what Denise says. I whittled her down. Anyway, had my first granddaughter in 2003. And then in 2003, something big happens. I lose Gilbert. All of you know Gilbert. Gilbert was with me since high school. He was with me 30 years. Gilbert and I have been through a lot. Gilbert's mother died unexpectedly one day. Gilbert's dad died unexpectedly soon after. Gilbert's had a rough road of it, and him and I had a lot of similar circumstances. And Gilbert decides to go in the tire business. I'm thinking, man, he comes to me and sits in my office, and here's something that really helped me with Eagle's Nest. When we used to greet the visitors out in the lobby, oh, it changed the way I did business. We used to greet the visitors like they would come out in the lobby, and I'd stand there and make idle chit-chat with them while they got to speak to the wise one, Pastor Bill. And they're waiting to greet him and everything. But it really made me do business different, because I never wanted to be standing out there in the lobby at Eagle's Nest and somebody say, I'd come to your church, Pastor Bill, if it wasn't for this little short bald-headed guy here who I had a bad business dealing with. So it really caused me to really make sure I did good in everything I did. But anyway, Gilbert comes into my office, says, I got to tell you something. What's that? I'm quitting. You're kidding. And I said, well, that's okay. Well, then why don't you rent the building in Lincoln? No, I've already rented a building. So this isn't an overnight thought. So I'm sitting there in my office, and I'm getting aggravated, and I'm thinking, Gilbert, I'm thinking this. You're going to out-advertise me, you think. You're going to outsell me. You're going to outdo me. How dare you think that you're going to go into the tire business and compete against me? What are you even thinking? And in a millisecond, I'm talking a millisecond, the Lord said to me, before this man leaves your office, make sure he sees Jesus in the next word out of your mouth. And I said, Gilbert, the day you leave, whatever day that is, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, I'll never sell another tire or a wheel. Every time the phone rings, I'll just send people to you. And I'm thinking, did I just say that? In other words, where did that even come from? But I'll tell you what, a few years before that, there was a prophecy over me. A pastor came to Lighthouse Christian Center, and he said something to this effect. Remember him? He'd walk across the top of the pews to get to you. In other words, if you act like he's not coming to me, man, he'd be right there. Anyway, you couldn't even hide from this guy. He said, I got something for you. He said, there's going to come a day that you're going to make 3 times as much money as you've ever made in your life. You're going to be blessed with unbelievably good health. And you know, that day came after I quit selling tires. The next year was an unbelievable year. It was the first year we had to write like a check for $100,000 to pay taxes all at one time. And that was a toughie for me. Oh, the third part was you'll have a problem with taxation. And man, did I. When I had to pay them taxes, I had a real problem with it. Writing a check for like $100,000 at one time to pay taxes, I struggled with that. But anyway, it was just something how that worked out. But there's another example of where I knew God was with me. I mean, my spirit was so quickened when he said, you make sure the next thing that comes out of your mouth, Gilbert fell apart. He didn't know what to say. He wasn't expecting anything like that. And a lot of people don't even know that. But I wanted to make sure that Gilbert was successful. He had put up with me. He had worked for me. He had done good for me. And he didn't give me a dime for my business. It was all just, I wanted to bless him on his exit. And that's what we need to make sure we do with one another, is bless them on their exit. Anyway, so that's when I quit being in the tire business and lost Gilbert. Then I had another little scenario. I bought these things called GEM cars, Global Electric Motor Cars. People thought I really went crazy. I spent like 300 grand on the first batch of them. Okay, I found these. Chrysler had donated them to nonprofit organizations in New York. They gave away 12,000 of them for free to ambulance companies, Jewish synagogues, churches. They got the tax write-off for donating them, and they got the emissions credit because it was when they were coming out with the Hemis, and they needed these emissions credits. So all these places had these cars that are worth $12,000, $14,000, and they're selling them for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So I'm buying them as fast as I can, paying people to go to New York and pick these things up. And I saw them in Rehoboth. I saw them. The Dewey Beach Police had them, and the Lewis Police had them. And I'm thinking, man, this is it. And so I sell the first one. Guy goes to the motor vehicle won't tag it. I get on the phone with Jack Eanes, who's the director of the motor vehicle, and he says, I ain't tagging them, and I ain't never tagged one. I said, you have tagged them. I've never tagged one. We go back and forth, back and forth. I called somebody, had them go down to Dewey, Rehoboth, and Lewis, and the Cape Antelope State Park and take pictures of all of them and take pictures of the tags that were on them. Email them to him, get him back on the phone. I forgot I tagged those. I said to myself, this is the makings of a good lawsuit, a good one here. In other words, you know, these people can do it, I can't do it. And I pondered that. And I decided to not go any further with that, which I'm kind of glad I didn't. But boy, there's another example. God honored that. I sold them gem cars as far away as Thailand. Thailand. Made enough money to pay for my daughter's college and her wedding. It was a good deal. And everybody else made money. Doug, you got to go down to Key Largo, Florida and deliver them. And Jason got to go to New York and pick them up. And a lot of people really benefited from it, picking them up, delivering them. And we made a lot of friends. And I don't know how many we sold, a couple hundred or something like that. And it was a good thing. Again, another thing. But everybody in my family and everywhere thought I had absolutely went crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Because the next bunch was a lot more than $300,000 I laid out. So did good with the gem cars. Again, felt God had just dropped another one right in my lap. Anyway, I had my second heart attack in 2005. Had no trip planned. This one just came from not paying attention to the first one. And I had 4 more stents put in. So now I have 6 stents in one artery and 2 stents somewhere else. So I am making sure there's a defibrillator around here somewhere. Anyway, then Kimberly decides to get married. So now Jenny's gotten married, Kim went to college, and now Kim's back and she wants to get married. So I have to let her. So she does, and we're happy with Mike, but he's the only one that won't come to work for me just yet. So he's at Penco, and we don't want him to get laid off, but we're here if he needs us. So anyway, then in 2006, I bought a lot of land investments. And some of them have really been kind of challenging, but as interesting as it is, during this bad economy, guess what land is still going up? Commercial properties. As I get stuff appraised, my appraisals are up. I'm pretty pleased with things. So I've got all these little land investments and stuff like that, and I got a house in Milford that we rent to some people, and they're just as happy as can be, and I got another house that we built, and so I'm kind of enjoying that, and some days I don't enjoy it, so it's not too bad. Then I opened Weller's Clearance Center in Lincoln in 2007. Again, everybody thinks I'm crazy. Now we're selling socks and shovels and guitars and, oh my goodness, everything under the sun. But we have a lot of fun with it. In other words, and people that work for me. In other words, Rob and Doug, I got to hire Brandon. I mean, we were able to hire 2 new people last year. A lot of people weren't hiring. So again, I'm not taking any credit for anything other than I encourage people to listen to God, keep moving. Don't wait for him to do it for you. Let him do it through you, but keep moving. I have a real problem with people that think they're worth this. I meet so many businessmen that say, I'm not working for less than $40 an hour, $30 an hour, you know, and I think that's unbiblical, and here's why I think that. If God cannot trust you with $7.50 an hour, he can't trust you with $27.50 an hour. And these people that say, I won't do this, I won't work for that, I've worked for 50 cents a day, I do whatever I got to do, I don't turn down nothing. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the, I like to buy, I like to sell. The money's just a byproduct of it. All of you that work with me or work for me, I'm not about the money. I like the money, but it just seems to come. The strangest things happen to people that get up every morning and go work hard. The funniest thing happens. They're successful. So again, I really feel that God has gifted me with just an odd little way of seeing things. Let's just talk about generators for a minute, okay? I remember buying generators. This company that sold them to me, here's what the guy said. He said, Jim, I got an idea for you. You should buy every generator we got, so that way it takes 8 weeks to get another load from China, and we'll be out. And every time the phone rings, we'll send people to you. Now, all my friends, what do you think that was? They thought it was a sales pitch. I bought all the generators they had, every last one of them. A few weeks later, a great big storm hits down in Galveston, Texas, or something like that. We're selling tractor trailer loads of generators. Some of them never even left Indiana. Got shipped right from Indiana, right down there. And I ended up selling some of them back to them at $100 a piece profit. And they never left their building. Never left their building. So again, I encourage people, don't be foolish. But you need to look for opportunities in everything that's going on. Even in this economic time, there's opportunities. Any businessman in here can admit this. Used to be when business was good, you walk by another businessman, how you doing? Doing fine, keep right on trucking. Now, man, you want to stop. You want to talk about how hard it is to keep your help and whether I should keep doing this or keep doing that. You're getting to know people a whole lot more than you used to know them. So it is what it is. I'm getting off track here. Oh, okay. So anyway, then Weller's Clearance Center in Lincoln opens. Then in 2007, my second granddaughter was born, so I must have missed my first granddaughter. She was born in 2003, and then my second one was born in 2007. If you're a grandparent, you know just what I'm talking about. Pastor Mike, there's nothing like it. I can remember I started doing paperwork from home. I like kind of hanging out and babysitting a little bit. I kind of liked it when Jenny picked them up. In other words, it was all pretty good. So anyway, 2008, I turned 50 years old, had a really nice party. That was a lot of fun. 2008, 2009, saw the economy changing, saw it changing. You would be foolish to think it wasn't. Gosh, I got so many friends that said, oh, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. Man, I ain't waiting on nothing. Weight broke the wagon is my attitude. So in other words, I started getting into other things. It's like we started selling sheds. That's been real good. I think we sold 40 some last year, something like that. We started selling socks. Big ha ha he he. But you know what? Got people talking. In other words, and when they're talking about you, that's all that matters in the advertising. So anyway, started selling sheds, socks, generators, cots, selling cots, power washers, tractors, implements, swing sets, and much, much, much more. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you just wouldn't believe it. I mean, I remember one day we bought 12 40-foot-long container bodies. Empty containers, got them all lined up nice and neat. About 3 or 4 weeks later, we had them puppies full of stuff. So I like to buy stuff. There's no question about it. Then 2009, a devastating blow. My son Jimmy decides to buy a house, and then he decides to move out and live in it. So anyway, now it's just me and Denise and the cats and the dog and the raccoon in the tree. So anyway, but just a couple weeks ago when the snowstorm hit, well, maybe it was a week ago, you know, we sold 259 generators in 3 days. And I'm happy about that. And the people that bought them, then you deliver one to somebody, the guy was turning blue because his oxygen machine wasn't working. I mean, everybody wins. And that's the way it is in God's world. It's not always easy. I mean, there's times it rains on the just and it rains on the unjust. And there's times that you're going to walk through things and go through things. But again, as long as you realize, number one, you can get through it. That's already guaranteed and for sure. And if you just trust in the Lord, and here's my big thing. I'm not real big on listening to people, okay? I'll listen to you and then I'm going to go do what I want to do, okay? So I don't know if that's a good thing or not a good thing, but for me, it's been my claim to fame. So anyway, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So that's about all I got. Anybody got any questions? Well, believe it or not, I'm working on, my big decision is tomorrow whether to buy 1,000 snow shovels or 2,000 snow shovels. I haven't got them yet. I'll have them here by, I talked to the guy this morning. They had 20,000 snow shovels this morning. This afternoon they had none. I got to get moving on this. I shouldn't be thinking so long. But I didn't know whether to buy 1,000 or 2,000 and so on and so forth. But Lowe's is not going to replenish any snow shovels. Whatever they got, they got. Whatever generators they got, they got. And after they're gone, they're done for the season. So I'll have snow shovels by the middle of next week. So anyway, Harry is a good Weller's Clearance Center customer. He's a frequent flyer down there. Comes in and buys stuff. So anyway, other than that, that's that. I encourage you to be bold in your faith, not be shy about it. And what'd you say? Nope. Okay. Okay. I thought Bill wanted to sing. All right. Well, that's that. Again, thank you for having me. Did you have something, Lucius?
Yes. You said you don't listen too well, but when God speaks to you, what does he say to you, and how does he talk to you, and how do you listen?
Okay. Believe it or not, God speaks to me mostly in the shower. This is no lie. When I'm taking a shower, I feel like I'm kind of just getting cleansed off from the filth of the day before or whatever. But I really, man, when I come out of the shower, I am rolling. And so a lot of times I'll be pondering something, whether to do this, whether not to do that, and God will just really give me a clear thought on to just move right along. So that's kind of when I really, truly, honestly have my, so I guess if I really have to decide something, I go take a shower. So, but and what it is it's when nobody's going to knock on my door or the phone may ring, but I'm not going to answer it. So anyway, you know, it is, I guess, almost my quiet time other than late at night. I stay up very late at night because after 10, 11 o'clock, I don't have to worry about anybody calling me but the state police or something. So my night's pretty restful at that point. So any other questions or anything? Well, I thank you all for coming. I hope it was worth your time and your energy. I appreciate you all as friends, and I got a good group here, and I appreciate you coming, and thank you for being my friend. And I want to encourage you to keep the faith, just not to yourself. Thank you. There you go. Okay.